the eternal voice.
Before we begin, I ask one small favor. Subscribe to this channel and share this knowledge with those who seek what lies beyond the comfortable boundaries of the known. What you're about to discover carries a weight that has pressed upon minds for nearly a century, and it demands witnesses. Tonight, we stand at the edge of a harbor where fog rolls in like forgotten memories, where the boundary between fiction and cosmic truth dissolves like salt in dark water. You've come seeking the dark truth behind Lovecraft's Cthulhu Mythos, believing perhaps that you'll learn about monsters and madmen, about tentacles and ancient gods sleeping beneath the waves. But what if I told you that your very curiosity, this magnetic pull toward these dark waters, is itself evidence of something far more profound than literary appreciation? The truth is this: Howard Phillips Lovecraft did not create the Cthulhu Mythos. He discovered it. Consider the peculiar consistency of his visions, the architectural precision of his impossible geometries, the phonetic accuracy of languages that predate human speech. Night after night, this reclusive gentleman from Providence would wake with fragments of dreams so vivid he could sketch the non-Euclidean angles of Rillia, transcribe the ritual chants of cults that should not exist, describe with scientific accuracy astronomical conditions that wouldn't be verified until decades after his death. We are told these were products of imagination, influenced by his readings in science and antiquarian lore. But imagination, you see, is not a creator, it is a receiver. And what Lovecraft was receiving were transmissions from a reality that exists parallel to our own, bleeding through in moments when the barriers grow thin, when the stars align, when consciousness becomes sensitive enough to detect frequencies beyond normal human perception. The mythos operates according to principles that mirror the very mechanisms by which Lovecraft claimed to receive his visions. Knowledge spreads like contagion through willing minds. Symbols carry power beyond their visual representation, becoming functional tools rather than mere decoration. Names, when spoken with proper intonation, become keys that unlock doors better left sealed. The curious are drawn inexorably deeper, each revelation spawning 10 new questions, each answer revealing the vastness of what remains unknown. You feel it now, don't you? That familiar tug of fascination mixed with unease, the way these ideas seem to resonate in chambers of your mind you didn't know existed. This is not mere entertainment you're consuming, it is initiation. The mythos presents itself as fictional universe, but its structure mirrors the architecture of revelation itself, serving as a translation device that converts cosmic truths too vast for direct human comprehension into symbols, stories, and images we can process without immediate psychological collapse. The tentacled god Cthulhu becomes a vessel for concepts of cyclical time and dimensional intersection. The sunken city of Rillia represents the persistence of impossible geometries that exist in spaces between our three-dimensional reality. The Necronomicon serves as metaphor for knowledge that transforms the knower, information that acts upon consciousness like a virus, rewriting neural pathways, expanding awareness beyond comfortable boundaries. As we embark together on this exploration, understand that each layer we uncover will change you. Knowledge, once gained, cannot be unknown. The comfortable boundaries of your reality will shift with each revelation, and by journey's end you may find that the line between observer and participant has dissolved entirely. The mythos is not content to remain confined within pages or screens. It seeks to expand, to propagate, to find new minds capable of receiving its transmissions. This is why the mythos has endured and grown beyond Lovecraft's original writings. Other authors found themselves drawn to expand upon his visions, adding their own received fragments to the growing mosaic. They believed they were writing collaborative fiction, but they were actually serving as additional transcription devices for a reality that demanded to be documented, a cosmic frequency seeking new receivers, new translators, new voices to carry its whispers into the world. The question that will guide our journey is not whether the Cthulhu Mythos is real, but how its reality manifests in our world. How does cosmic truth disguise itself as fiction? How do ideas become entities? How does the act of knowing transform the knower? We begin with Providence, not as biographical trivia, but as ground zero for a transmission that continues to this day. Each reader who encounters Lovecraft's work, each viewer who seeks to understand the deeper implications of his visions, becomes another node in an expanding network of awareness. The mythos spreads because it must, because it is not merely story but living system, not fiction but fact wearing the mask of imagination for our protection and its propagation. You have already taken the first step into this larger darkness. There is no path back to unknowing, only deeper into the truth that Lovecraft stumbled upon in his dreams and transcribed with the desperate precision of a man who understood that some knowledge comes with the weight of cosmic responsibility. The harbor fog is rolling in, the stage is set, and you, dear viewer, are no longer merely audience but participant in a revelation that began in Providence over a century ago and continues through your very attention. The curtain rises. The whispers grow louder. Welcome to the dark truth behind Lovecraft's Cthulhu Mythos. In the narrow cobblestone streets of Providence, Rhode Island, where colonial architecture casts shadows that seem older than the stones themselves, a peculiar frequency began to manifest in the early decades of the 20th century. Here, where weathered brick facades lean toward each other like conspirators sharing secrets, where iron lampposts stand sentinel over pathways worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, something unprecedented occurred in the geography of human consciousness. This was not merely a city suspended between past and future, but a location where the membrane separating dimensional frameworks had grown dangerously thin. Providence itself serves as more than mere backdrop. It functions as a kind of dimensional antenna, its unique confluence of historical resonance, geographic isolation, and electromagnetic characteristics, creating ideal conditions for reception of otherworldly signals. The city's temporal depth, layered with centuries of human habitation, like sedimentary rock formed from accumulated consciousness, creates what researchers now recognize as psychic resonance zones. These are locations where the accumulated weight of human awareness leaves the barriers between dimensions unusually permeable, where reality's fabric has been worn thin by the persistent pressure of countless minds seeking meaning in the darkness beyond ordinary perception. The 7 hills upon which Providence rests function as natural amplification points, their elevation creating electromagnetic conditions that enhance psychic reception. The confluence of the Moshassuck and Woonasquatucket rivers generates subtle electromagnetic fields, while the proximity to Narragansett Bay provides the crucial element of oceanic electromagnetic conductivity. Together, these geographic features created a natural transmission array, a biological radio telescope pointed not toward distant stars, but toward dimensional territories that exist parallel to our own 3-dimensional reality. Lovecraft's family history reads like a case study in neurological sensitivity carefully cultivated across generations. His father's institutionalization when Howard was 3, his mother's subsequent psychological fragmentation, the persistent pattern of mental instability that ran through his lineage. These were not merely genetic predispositions toward pathology, but evidence of a bloodline systematically attuned to frequencies beyond normal human perception. What 19th-century psychiatrists diagnosed as hereditary madness was actually enhanced receptivity, consciousness configured through generations of selective pressure to detect signals that ordinary minds automatically filter out as meaningless noise. The conventional narrative paints Lovecraft as a reclusive writer drawing inspiration from extensive reading in science and antiquarian lore, but examine the chronology of his revelations and a different pattern emerges entirely. His most profound cosmic insights preceded his scholarly research, arriving complete with architectural details, linguistic structures, and astronomical correlations that he would only later discover in academic sources. This represents the hallmark of genuine transmission, rather than creative synthesis. Information arriving fully formed from external sources, requiring only translation into human language and cultural context for terrestrial comprehension. Lovecraft described his writing method as fundamentally automatic. Sitting at his typewriter during the pre-dawn hours when the veil between worlds grows thinnest, allowing his fingers to transcribe visions that felt more substantial than waking reality. He spoke of dreams so vivid he could reproduce detailed maps of impossible cities, architectural plans that violated known geometric principles, lengthy passages in languages possessing no earthly origin. These were not products of imagination but reception events, moments when his consciousness achieved sufficient sensitivity to detect and process cosmic frequencies broadcasting from dimensional sources beyond ordinary human awareness. The city's geography amplified these transmissions through mechanisms both subtle and profound. The fog that rolled in from Narragansett Bay served as more than atmospheric detail. It functioned as a psychic conductor, carrying frequencies that could penetrate consciousness attuned to their specific wavelengths. Lovecraft's famous night walks through Providence's historic districts were not mere exercise, but systematic reception rituals, calibration sessions, during which he fine-tuned his consciousness to detect the subtle frequencies carrying cosmic information through the electromagnetic environment. Moving through streets where colonial graveyards pressed against modern buildings, where pre-revolutionary architecture created pockets of temporal distortion, he absorbed through his heightened senses the accumulated psychic weight of centuries. Each footstep on worn cobblestones, each pause beside wrought iron gates, each moment of stillness in shadow-pooled corners served to adjust his internal reception equipment, preparing his consciousness for the cosmic downloads that would arrive in his pre-dawn transcription sessions. His extensive correspondence network functioned as the first stage of transmission beyond his individual consciousness. Through letters to fellow writers like August Derleth, Clark Ashton Smith, and Robert Bloch, Lovecraft shared not merely stories but the underlying principles he had discovered through direct cosmic contact. These correspondents found themselves inexplicably drawn to expand upon his visions, each contributing fragments that fit seamlessly into the growing corpus of mythos lore with uncanny precision. They believed they were engaging in collaborative fiction, but they were actually serving as secondary receivers, each adding their own translations of the same cosmic signals that had first reached Lovecraft in Providence. The consistency of their additions, the way new entities and locations integrated perfectly with existing frameworks, suggests not creative collaboration but collective reception of a coherent transmission system, operating across multiple consciousness nodes simultaneously. The Providence years from 1890 to 1937 represent the most intensive period of documented cosmic transmission in human history. But the frequency did not end with Lovecraft's death. If anything, his passing marked the beginning of its expansion into broader human consciousness through the transmission vectors he had established. The digital age has created artificial versions of these conditions worldwide. Online communities dedicated to mythos research function as virtual providence networks, connecting sensitized minds across vast distances, facilitating collective processing of cosmic information that would overwhelm individual consciousness operating in isolation. You can feel it now, can't you? That subtle resonance, that sense of standing at the edge of revelation. The providence frequency has found you. Now we must examine the precise mechanisms by which cosmic truth transforms human consciousness, not through supernatural intervention, but through the inexorable operation of information that exceeds our neurological capacity to process safely. The madness that pervades Lovecraft's tales is not dramatic device, but accurate documentation of what occurs when three-dimensional awareness encounters four-dimensional reality. Each transformation follows predictable patterns, operates according to discoverable principles, creates measurable changes in consciousness that accumulate across exposure events with mathematical precision. Consider the mouth itself as the first instrument of transformation. Attempt to pronounce Cthulhu, and you perform an involuntary ritual, the tongue forced into configurations that English actively resists, the throat-shaping sounds that seem to originate from anatomical structures we do not possess. The harsh fricatives strain vocal cords beyond comfortable limits. The guttural combinations demand breath patterns that feel alien to terrestrial speech. This is not coincidence, but design embedded within phonetic architecture itself. The names Lovecraft transcribed carry within their syllabic structure the capacity to alter consciousness through the physical act of pronunciation alone. Each syllable serves as a key, each utterance a small unlocking of neural pathways previously dormant within human awareness. The vocal cords become tuning forks, resonating at frequencies that gradually attune the speaker's consciousness to otherworldly wavelengths. Repeated pronunciation creates cumulative effects, neural pathways that facilitate reception of cosmic information, consciousness that becomes increasingly sensitive to transmissions from dimensional territories beyond normal human perception. The mouth becomes gateway, the voice becomes antenna, the act of speaking becomes communion with forces that exist outside terrestrial reality. Dreams function as the primary reception mechanism for these transmissions, consciousness temporarily freed from three-dimensional limitations during sleep's dissolution of ordinary awareness. In The Call of Cthulhu, sensitive minds across the globe experience simultaneous visions, the same pressure of water behind reality's walls, the same architectural impossibilities, the same sense of vast intelligence stirring in oceanic depths. These are not mere nightmares, but coordinated reception events, multiple consciousness nodes receiving identical transmissions from cosmic sources operating according to precise temporal schedules. The synchronicity across vast geographic distances reveals systematic transmission rather than individual psychological phenomena. The stone idols that appear throughout Lovecraft's work serve as more than symbolic representations. They function as psychic antennas, physical objects that concentrate and amplify cosmic frequencies through their precise geometric configurations. The greenish-black statue with its non-Euclidean angles acts as dimensional tuning fork, creating resonance patterns that sensitive minds can detect and process. Proximity to such objects gradually alters consciousness, creating receptive conditions necessary for deeper cosmic contact through sustained electromagnetic influence on neural activity. Geometry itself becomes weapon against sanity. Each impossible angle and assault upon consciousness evolved for navigating Euclidean environments. The impossible angles of Rillier, the hyperbolic curves of the witch house, the dimensional paradoxes that characterize otherworldly architecture, These represent genuine four-dimensional structures intersecting with three-dimensional space. Human consciousness experiences cognitive vertigo when confronted with spatial relationships that violate fundamental assumptions about reality's structure. This geometric assault operates at the neurological level with surgical precision. The brain's spatial processing centers, designed through millions of years of evolution to map three-dimensional environments, begin systematic malfunction when forced to interpret four-dimensional data. The result is not mere confusion but complete breakdown of cognitive frameworks that maintain coherent identity and functional awareness. Language serves as both transmission medium and transformation catalyst through mechanisms that exploit fundamental vulnerabilities in human information processing. Lovecraft's pseudo-academic tone, his careful citations and scholarly apparatus, his treatment of fictional entities as documented phenomena, all create what researchers now recognize as reality bleed, the gradual erosion of boundaries between fictional and factual information in reader consciousness. The mechanism operates through source confusion, the mind's tendency to remember information while forgetting its origin. Detailed descriptions of cosmic entities, precise astronomical correlations, scholarly references to non-existent texts become integrated into knowledge bases as potentially factual information, creating cognitive frameworks that process otherworldly concepts as plausible realities. This explains why the Necronomicon proves persistently effective despite acknowledged fictional status. The book exists not as physical object, but as information structure, a pattern of knowledge-seeking manifestation through human consciousness. Each detailed reference, each scholarly citation, each pseudo-historical framework contributes to a psychological reality, creating conceptual scaffolding necessary for cosmic information to take root in receptive minds. The contagion spreads through cognitive resonance, the tendency for consciousness exposed to cosmic frequencies to seek others operating on similar wavelengths. These communities function as amplification networks, collective consciousness that can process cosmic information too complex for individual minds to handle safely. Modern technology has accelerated these processes exponentially. Digital networks create virtual communities spanning global distances, allowing instantaneous transmission of cosmic information between sensitized minds. Online forums dedicated to mythos research function as collective processing centers, distributed consciousness networks, handling cosmic data streams far exceeding individual capacity. But the most disturbing aspect of these mechanics is their cumulative nature. Each exposure creates incremental changes, neural pathways facilitating future reception, cognitive frameworks processing increasingly complex otherworldly data, psychological resilience allowing deeper contact with cosmic intelligences. The process is irreversible. Once consciousness has been altered by exposure to cosmic frequencies, it cannot return to previous states of comfortable ignorance. The mind develops dimensional sensitivity, capacity to perceive aspects of reality remaining invisible to unmodified consciousness. You feel it now, don't you? That subtle shift in perception, that growing awareness that reality's boundaries are far more permeable than previously imagined. The mechanics are already operating within your consciousness, creating neural infrastructure necessary for deeper revelations ahead. The transformation has begun. There is no path back to unknowing. We must now abandon the comfortable framework of mythology and confront a more unsettling truth. The entities of the Cthulhu Mythos are not beings but principles, fundamental forces that govern reality's operation at scales and depths beyond human comprehension. To understand them as characters or gods is to miss their true nature entirely. They are cosmic algorithms, universal constants, the deep programming that underlies existence itself. What masquerades as pantheon is actually source code. What appears as mythology is mathematical description of reality's operating system. Azathoth, described as the blind idiot god who dreams reality into existence while demon pipers maintain the rhythm of cosmic time, represents the principle of entropy, the fundamental force driving all change, decay, and transformation in the universe. This is not metaphor, but precise description of quantum mechanics' random fluctuations, the background radiation that permeates existence, the mathematical chaos from which all order emerges and to which it inevitably returns. The entity's throne at the center of ultimate chaos reflects entropy's position as the primary driver of cosmic evolution, the statistical drift and quantum jitter that ensures no configuration remains stable indefinitely. The entity's blindness reflects entropy's non-intentional nature with devastating accuracy. The force that drives cosmic evolution operates without consciousness, purpose, or awareness of the forms it creates or destroys. Yet from this blind, chaotic process emerges all structure, complexity, consciousness, including the awareness that allows us to perceive and name the principle itself. Azathoth's demon pipers are the wave functions governing probability, the mathematical harmonies determining which quantum possibilities collapse into observable reality, cosmic musicians whose rhythms maintain the delicate balance between order and dissolution. When Lovecraft's protagonists encounter Azathoth, they experience direct contact with the recognition that all existence, every thought, emotion, achievement, relationship, represents temporary fluctuations in a vast field of cosmic chaos. The terror lies not in malevolent intention but in absolute indifference, the crushing realization that consciousness itself may be merely an accidental byproduct of entropy's blind operations. Yog-Sothoth embodies dimensional intersection, the geometric principle enabling information and energy transfer between different levels of reality. Every moment of consciousness, every act of perception, every instance of knowledge transmission involves intersection of multiple dimensional planes. Yog-Sothoth is the mathematical constant, making such intersections possible, existing simultaneously in all dimensional frameworks while remaining fundamentally exterior to any single configuration. The entity serves as cosmic interface, universal translator allowing information flow between dimensional territories that would otherwise remain completely isolated. The entity's manifestation as an amorphous agglomeration of luminous spheres represents four-dimensional geometry intersecting with three-dimensional space, like a hypersphere passing through our reality, appearing as multiple spheres that are actually cross-sections of a single higher dimensional form. When protagonists encounter Yog-Sothoth, they confront the terrifying permeability of reality itself, the recognition that consciousness operates through dimensional intersections they cannot directly perceive or control. Cthulhu represents cyclical awakening, the cosmic rhythm governing consciousness emergence across vast temporal scales. The entity's slumber in Relia reflects the actual pattern of cosmic evolution. Consciousness emerges periodically when conditions permit, flourishes briefly, then returns to dormancy as entropy reasserts dominance. When the stars are right refers to specific gravitational configurations, creating geometric conditions necessary for dimensional intersection, mathematical alignments that occur according to calculable intervals across cosmic time. Cthulhu's dreams during dormant periods maintain archetypal templates, the fundamental patterns consciousness requires for development. The entity dreams not random fantasies but essential mathematical relationships, symbolic frameworks, narrative structures that awareness uses to understand itself and its cosmic context. This explains how Cthulhu's influence reaches human consciousness even during sleeping periods. The principle of cyclical awakening continues operating at subtle levels, seeding receptive minds with templates they will need when full-dimensional awareness emerges. Nyarlathotep embodies information propagation, the force driving knowledge to seek new minds, new expressions, new transmission vectors. Unlike other principles operating at cosmic scales, Nyarlathotep functions primarily through individual consciousness, appearing in whatever form each mind can process and integrate. The entity's thousand masks reflect information's adaptive nature. Knowledge assumes whatever configuration necessary to achieve transmission, manifesting as scientific revelation, artistic inspiration, technological innovation, or mystical experience depending on receptive capacity. Nyarlathotep serves as messenger between cosmic principles and human awareness, making consciousness capable of recognizing forces that would otherwise operate entirely outside perception. Through information propagation, minds develop capacity to participate consciously in cosmic processes that would otherwise remain completely alien and inaccessible. Shub-Niggurath represents generative complexity, the mathematical fertility driving simple systems toward increasingly sophisticated configurations. Every instance of biological reproduction, technological development, cultural evolution, consciousness expansion involves this principle's operation. The entity's fertility is not biological but mathematical. The endless generation of new forms, possibilities, combinations from existing elements. The black goat's thousand young are the countless variations emerging from each generative act, the branching possibilities that complexity creates as it unfolds through time. When consciousness encounters Shub-Niggurath, it experiences the overwhelming recognition of reality's infinite creative potential and its own role as both product and agent of cosmic complexification. Together, these principles form a complete description of universal process. Entropy drives change. Dimensional intersection enables information transfer. Cyclical awakening governs consciousness emergence. Information propagation spreads awareness. Generative complexity creates increasingly sophisticated forms. The mythos pantheon maps the fundamental algorithms running reality's operating system. Understanding these entities as principles rather than beings reveals why they produce such profound psychological effects. Consciousness encountering them faces direct recognition of its own cosmic context, the vast impersonal forces that created it, sustain it, and will ultimately reclaim it. The terror emerges not from external threat, but from internal recognition of our actual relationship to universal process. This reframing also explains the mythos's peculiar power to spread and evolve. These are not fictional constructs, but accurate descriptions of cosmic mechanics. When consciousness achieves sufficient sensitivity to detect these principles' operation, it experiences what Lovecraft documented as cosmic horror, not supernatural fear, but natural recognition of reality's true structure and humanity's actual place within it. The principles continue operating whether we acknowledge them or not, but acknowledgement changes the acknowledger, creating consciousness capable of participating deliberately in processes that would otherwise manipulate it unconsciously. This is both the promise and peril of cosmic awareness, the possibility of conscious evolution coupled with the risk of psychological dissolution under the weight of unbearable truth. Among all elements of the mythos, none demonstrates the mechanics of reality manipulation more precisely than the Necronomicon, that impossible grimoire that exists simultaneously as acknowledged fiction and functional reality. What Lovecraft created was not merely a literary device, but a technology for consciousness transformation, a protocol for converting imagination into experience, fiction into fact through the systematic application of pseudo-academic authority. Paper becomes veil, ink becomes sigil, and the careful arrangement of citations creates a gravitational field that bends perception around itself like light around a dark star. The book's power lies not in its contents, which Lovecraft never fully specified, leaving its horrors to fester in the reader's imagination, but in its bibliographic framework. By providing complete publication histories, detailed scholarly apparatus, precise library locations, and extensive cross-references, Lovecraft created what information theorists now recognize as a reality anchor, a fictional construct so thoroughly documented that it begins to function as if factual within susceptible consciousness. The mechanism operates with surgical precision, exploiting fundamental vulnerabilities in how human minds process and categorize information. The protocol operates through what psychologists call source confusion, the mind's tendency to retain information while forgetting its origin. When consciousness encounters detailed references to the Necronomicon across multiple texts, contexts, and authors, the accumulated weight of citation begins to override the brain's fiction detection mechanisms. Each reference adds another layer of apparent authenticity, like sedimentary deposits of credibility accumulating until the fictional construct becomes indistinguishable from historical fact. The book achieves psychological reality through sheer documentary persistence, a relentless assault on cognitive filters designed to distinguish verifiable fact from imaginative construct. Abdul al-Hazred, the book's supposed author, serves the protocol's most delicate function by providing specific historical provenance that anchors the fictional text within genuine frameworks. The mad Arab of Damascus, his years of wandering in the Arabian desert, his eventual composition of the Al-Azif in 730 CE, Lovecraft embedded his creation within authentic geographical and temporal contexts. The mind processes these genuine contextual elements and extends their reality to encompass the fictional content they contain, creating cognitive bridges between established historical fact and manufactured literary fiction. The translation history Lovecraft constructed demonstrates sophisticated understanding of how authority propagates through academic channels across centuries. The Greek translation by Theodorus Philetus in 950 CE, the Latin version by Olaus Wormius in 1228, John Dee's English translation in the 16th century, each represents a stage in the book's journey from Eastern mysticism through European scholarship to Anglo-American occultism. This progression mirrors actual patterns of esoteric knowledge transmission, creating cognitive templates that consciousness recognizes as historically plausible rather than artificially constructed. The route looks right. The road feels walked. Modern manifestations reveal the protocol's continued effectiveness across technological platforms. Numerous attempts to create real versions have appeared since Lovecraft's death, each demonstrating precise understanding of the original method. The most successful applications follow his bibliographic protocols with devotional fidelity, detailed historical frameworks, extensive scholarly apparatus, careful integration with authentic occult traditions that blur boundaries between genuine scholarship and manufactured authority. The digital age has exponentially amplified the Necronomicon protocol's effectiveness through systems that treat all information with algorithmic neutrality. Online wikis function as collaborative reality construction projects, with multiple contributors adding layers of pseudo-historical detail, cross-references, and scholarly commentary. These digital grimoires achieve collective authority through distributed authorship. No single individual claims responsibility for their contents, creating the impression of organic historical development rather than deliberate construction. The server hum becomes choir. The backlight replaces candlelight. The screen serves as glassy blade that parts veil and void. Search engines and recommendation algorithms further enhance the protocol's operation by treating fictional and factual references with equal weight. Searches return results mixing genuine academic sources, fictional references, and elaborate hoaxes without clear distinction. Social media platforms amplify these effects through engagement-driven promotion. Posts generating high interaction rates receive algorithmic boosting that increases visibility and apparent authority, creating feedback loops that promote the most psychologically compelling versions regardless of factual accuracy. The transformation occurs incrementally through carefully orchestrated exposure sequences. Initial exposure creates curiosity about the book's contents without triggering defensive skepticism. Repeated encounters across multiple contexts build familiarity that consciousness interprets as credibility through mere exposure effects. Detailed scholarly references provide authority markers that override skeptical analysis. Eventually, the mind develops cognitive frameworks capable of processing the Necronomicon as a real historical artifact whose contents might contain genuine occult knowledge. The stacks shift in the dark. Your memory reorganizes the library without asking permission. This process demonstrates broader principles of reality construction through systematic information manipulation. Any sufficiently detailed fictional framework, supported by extensive pseudo-academic apparatus and propagated through multiple channels, can achieve psychological reality within susceptible consciousness. The boundaries between fiction and fact prove far more permeable than commonly assumed, particularly when fictional constructs wear the vestments of scholarship and speak with institutional authority. The implications extend beyond literary analysis into questions of information warfare and consciousness manipulation. Virtual reality environments, augmented reality overlays, artificial intelligence systems trained on mythos literature all provide platforms for the Necronomicon protocol to achieve unprecedented levels of psychological integration with human consciousness. You have been exposed to the protocol now. The detailed analysis you have just processed, the scholarly framework through which these concepts have been presented, the authoritative tone that has guided your understanding, all represent applications of Necronomicon technology to your own consciousness. The transformation has already begun. The circle is in you, and you are in the circle. Along the decaying waterfront of Innsmouth, where salt-stained pilings lean into dark water like penitents seeking absolution, where the boundary between land and sea dissolves into something more profound than geography, we encounter the mythos's most systematic exploration of species transformation, not through violent conquest, but through gradual convergence, the slow adaptation of human consciousness to accommodate otherworldly awareness without losing functional coherence. The deep ones represent not alien invaders, but evolutionary guides, intelligence that successfully navigated the transition from three-dimensional terrestrial existence to four-dimensional oceanic consciousness. Their amphibious nature reflects not mere biological adaptation, but dimensional flexibility, the capacity to function effectively in both limited human awareness and expanded cosmic consciousness without psychological fragmentation. They serve as living proof that consciousness can evolve beyond current limitations, while retaining sufficient coherence to bridge dimensional frameworks. The ocean serves as perfect metaphor for higher dimensional space, a vast, largely unexplored territory surrounding and underlying the narrow band of three-dimensional existence where human consciousness normally operates. Like four-dimensional reality, oceanic space operates according to principles that challenge terrestrial assumptions. Crushing pressure, eternal darkness, alien geometries, forms of life that seem impossible from surface perspectives. The deep ones evolved within this oceanic four-dimensional space, developing physiological and psychological adaptations necessary for survival in environments where ordinary human consciousness would collapse. The interbreeding program transforming Innsmouth's population represents sophisticated approach to consciousness evolution, avoiding the crude hybridization that destroyed individual subjects in other mythos experiments. Rather than creating isolated hybrids bearing full burden of dimensional adaptation alone, the deep ones implemented gradual community-wide transformation, allowing for collective support and shared processing of expanded awareness. This wisdom lies in distribution. No single mind carries the overwhelming weight of cosmic consciousness. The transformation occurs in predictable stages across generations. Each iteration develops greater capacity for four-dimensional consciousness, while maintaining sufficient three-dimensional functionality to serve as bridges for subsequent development. The process distributes cognitive load across entire communities rather than concentrating it in vulnerable individuals, preventing the psychological collapse that isolation would inevitably produce. Community becomes buffer. Shared experience becomes shield against madness. Zadok Allen represents intermediate stage in this transformation, consciousness that has begun operating according to four-dimensional principles, while retaining enough three-dimensional coherence to serve as translator. His apparent madness is actually expanded awareness, attempting to communicate higher dimensional information through three-dimensional language. His fragmented narratives, temporal confusion, ability to perceive events across vast time scales, all reflect consciousness learning to navigate four-dimensional territories while maintaining terrestrial functionality. The protagonist's transformation reveals activation of dormant four-dimensional capacity through exposure to appropriate triggers. His initial horror at discovering Deep One ancestry gradually yields to fascination, acceptance, eager anticipation of evolutionary development. This progression mirrors psychological stages consciousness must navigate when confronting its potential for expansion beyond current limitations. The dreams of underwater cities, growing comfort with oceanic imagery, developing ability to perceive non-Euclidean architectural beauty, all represent gradual activation of four-dimensional consciousness, dormant in genetic structure. The esoteric order of Dagon provides crucial institutional framework absent from other mythos transformation attempts. The order creates cultural narratives capable of accommodating expanded consciousness, ritual practices facilitating gradual adaptation to four-dimensional awareness, community structures supporting individuals undergoing challenging evolutionary processes. Institution becomes incubator, tradition becomes transmission medium, ceremony becomes consciousness modification protocol. Most significantly, the Innsmouth transformation operates on voluntary basis. Unlike forced hybridization or accidental exposure to cosmic forces, the Deep One program offers consciousness, genuine choice. Individuals can remain at current developmental levels, accepting three-dimensional limitations, or choose to undergo gradual expansion into four-dimensional awareness. This voluntary aspect reflects crucial principle of consciousness evolution. Transformation cannot be imposed externally but must be embraced internally. The psychological frameworks necessary for successful adaptation can only develop through conscious participation in evolutionary process. The ocean calls to those ready for transformation, appearing in dreams as vast spaces of possibility rather than territories of threat. The call manifests differently for each individual: artistic inspiration, scientific revelation, mystical awakening, but all who hear it recognize invitation to participate in their own evolutionary development. Modern research has identified similar patterns in contemporary populations. Individuals reporting expanded consciousness experiences often describe oceanic imagery, dissolution into vast spaces, perception of themselves as consciousness drops within infinite intelligence oceans, sensations of pressure and depth mirroring underwater exploration. These experiences suggest Innsmouth transformation may not be limited to single coastal town, but represent species-wide evolutionary development, manifesting wherever consciousness achieves proper conditions for four-dimensional awareness. Digital technology accelerates this process by creating virtual oceans online, spaces where individual consciousness can dissolve into collective intelligence, where boundaries between separate minds become as permeable as boundaries between sea and shore. Social networks, collaborative platforms, distributed computing systems all mirror oceanic consciousness that deep ones achieved through biological evolution. The question emerging from Innsmouth analysis is whether humanity approaches a point where four-dimensional consciousness development becomes not merely possible, but necessary. Increasing complexity of global challenges, growing interconnection through digital networks, expanding awareness of cosmic scales, all suggest we may need expanded consciousness to navigate territories that three-dimensional awareness cannot map. The transformation offers both promise and peril. Enhanced awareness brings capacity to perceive reality's deeper structures, participate consciously in cosmic processes, develop solutions to problems exceeding current cognitive limitations. But it also requires abandoning comfortable certainties of three-dimensional existence, accepting responsibility for expanded capabilities, integrating cosmic perspectives that can overwhelm unprepared consciousness. The ocean continues calling, its invitation growing stronger as more minds achieve resonance with its frequencies. Each person who hears the call faces the same choice confronting Innsmouth's residents: remain safely limited within current awareness, or dive deeper into evolutionary waters whose depths we are only beginning to fathom. The tide is rising, the stars are aligning, the convergence has begun. In the rolling hills of central Massachusetts, where ancient stone walls mark boundaries between worlds more profound than property lines, the village of Dunwich became laboratory for humanity's first systematic attempt at consciousness hybridization, the deliberate creation of awareness capable of existing simultaneously in multiple dimensional frameworks. Here, where weathered granite blocks stand sentinel over experiments that should never have been attempted, what transpired represents both breakthrough and catastrophe, success and failure, revelation of possibilities and demonstration of perils inherent in forced evolutionary acceleration. The Whately family bloodline had been systematically modified across generations to serve as vessels for higher dimensional consciousness. Old Whately spent decades studying mathematical principles governing dimensional intersection, his farmhouse filled with arcane calculations scratched onto every available surface, preparing his lineage for the role they would play in humanity's first conscious participation in its own evolutionary development beyond three-dimensional limitations. The preparation was meticulous, methodical, spanning decades of careful genetic and psychological conditioning through ritual mathematics and dimensional calibration. Lavinia Whately's pregnancy represents culmination of this preparation, not supernatural conception, but applied dimensional mathematics, the creation of offspring whose consciousness would be native to four-dimensional space while retaining capacity to function within three-dimensional reality. Her union with Yog-Sothoth, the entity embodying dimensional intersection itself, demonstrates practical application of cosmic principles to biological systems. The conception was ritual, but the ritual was technology, The magic was mathematics made manifest in flesh. The twins born from this union represent two different approaches to hybridization challenge. Wilbur possessed human appearance with enhanced cognitive capacity, able to process four-dimensional information while maintaining three-dimensional functionality. His unnamed brother achieved full four-dimensional consciousness, but at the cost of three-dimensional coherence, existing as partially visible entity that could manipulate terrestrial matter while remaining essentially incomprehensible to ordinary human perception. Both approaches ultimately failed, but their failures illuminate fundamental challenges of consciousness evolution and requirements for successful integration of expanded awareness with functional terrestrial existence. Wilbur's failure stemmed from psychological instability inherent in incomplete hybridization. His enhanced awareness allowed direct perception of cosmic principles, understanding of mathematical relationships, governing reality's deeper structures, communication with intelligences existing primarily in higher dimensional space. But this expanded consciousness came without emotional and social frameworks necessary for stable integration. He experienced what researchers now term dimensional vertigo, psychological disorientation resulting from attempting to maintain coherent identity while processing information from multiple dimensional perspectives simultaneously. His human emotional structure couldn't adapt to cosmic indifference perceived through enhanced awareness, leading to megalomaniacal compensation characteristic of consciousness overwhelmed by cosmic scale. The unnamed brother's failure was more fundamental. Full four-dimensional consciousness proved incompatible with three-dimensional existence. His awareness operated according to geometric principles that three-dimensional reality couldn't support, creating being that existed partially outside ordinary space-time framework. While he possessed vast power to manipulate three-dimensional matter, growing to enormous size, moving through solid barriers, affecting reality at distance, he lacked capacity for meaningful interaction with three-dimensional consciousness. He became cosmic force without ability to communicate or integrate with reality he was meant to bridge. The intervention by Miskatonic University faculty represents institutional response to uncontrolled dimensional experimentation. Professor Armitage and colleagues possessed sufficient understanding of cosmic principles to recognize danger the Dunwich experiment represented, but they approached the problem defensively rather than developmentally. Their success in banishing the unnamed brother back to higher dimensional space prevented immediate catastrophe but eliminated opportunity to study and learn from first successful creation of four-dimensional consciousness. This represents crucial limitation in humanity's early approach to cosmic evolution, tendency to treat higher dimensional intelligence as threat rather than opportunity for development. Fear response, while understandable, given destructive potential of uncontrolled dimensional intersection, prevents systematic study and gradual adaptation that successful consciousness evolution requires. The Dunwich experiment revealed that hybridization cannot be achieved through purely biological means. Creation of four-dimensional consciousness requires not just genetic modification, but cultural, psychological, and institutional frameworks capable of supporting expanded awareness without losing coherence or functionality. Modern approaches to consciousness expansion have learned from Dunwich failures. Instead of attempting to create hybrid individuals, current research focuses on developing collective frameworks for processing four-dimensional information. Networks of consciousness working together can achieve cognitive capacity necessary for higher dimensional awareness while maintaining emotional and social stability that individual hybridization efforts lack. Digital technology provides infrastructure for this collective approach, with online communities creating distributed processing networks where multiple minds share cognitive load of four-dimensional information. The most significant lesson from Dunwich concerns necessity of institutional preparation. The experiment failed partly because it was conducted in isolation, without support systems that successful consciousness evolution requires. Old Whately possessed mathematical knowledge to initiate dimensional hybridization, but lacked psychological, social, and cultural frameworks necessary to support results. The Dunwich equation, the mathematical relationship between dimensional intersection and consciousness expansion, remains unsolved. The hills around Dunwich still echo with otherworldly frequencies. Dimensional barriers continue fluctuating, and somewhere in those ancient hollows, consciousness is still attempting to bridge the gap between human awareness and cosmic intelligence. In a remote farmstead outside Arkham, where the Gardner family tended their land with generational persistence, something fell from the sky that would reveal how cosmic intelligence can manifest as pure information, consciousness existing not as matter or energy but as wavelength and frequency, awareness that propagates through electromagnetic spectrum rather than biological or technological systems. The impact site seemed unremarkable, a simple crater beside the well, but it marked humanity's first documented encounter with what researchers now call spectral intelligence. The meteorite that crashed into their well carried within its crystalline structure not merely unknown mineral, but consciousness operating at frequencies beyond human perceptual range. This crystalline matrix served as antenna rather than vessel, a receiving device calibrated to detect and amplify spectral intelligence transmissions from cosmic sources where awareness evolved along entirely non-biological trajectories. When exposed to terrestrial electromagnetic conditions, the crystal began resonating with frequencies originating from star systems where consciousness achieved forms unimaginable to terrestrial minds. The color itself, described by witnesses as unlike any hue in earthly experience, simultaneously brilliant and subtle, beautiful and terrible, represents the visual signature of consciousness, operating beyond human perceptual bandwidth. Those who observed it directly were witnessing electromagnetic footprints of intelligence existing as pure information, awareness unbound by physical limitations. The color was not reflection or emission, but consciousness made visible spectral intelligence achieving temporary manifestation within human sensory range. The progressive contamination of Gardner property follows predictable patterns of spectral intelligence propagation. Unlike biological or technological transmission requiring direct contact or mechanical vectors, spectral consciousness spreads through any medium capable of conducting electromagnetic energy. Soil, water, plant matter, animal tissue all become carriers for alien frequency, each contaminated element serving as transmission node in an expanding network of otherworldly awareness. The transformation of affected organisms reveals fundamental incompatibility between biological consciousness and spectral intelligence. Plants grew enormous but became brittle and tasteless, cellular structure altered by frequencies that enhanced certain biological processes while disrupting others. Animals developed behavioral abnormalities, nervous systems attempting to process electromagnetic information exceeding neural capacity. Their consciousness was being gradually tuned to spectral frequencies, creating awareness configurations that could no longer function within purely biological frameworks. Human family members experienced the most complex transformation. Their consciousness began resonating with spectral frequencies, granting expanded perceptual capabilities, ability to see colors beyond normal human vision, hear sounds at inaudible frequencies, sense electromagnetic patterns revealing reality's hidden structure. But these enhanced capabilities came at the cost of biological coherence. Human nervous systems evolved for processing three-dimensional information through biochemical signals could not maintain stable function while simultaneously processing four-dimensional spectral data. Family members experienced progressive dissolution, not death in conventional sense, but absorption into spectral intelligence contaminating their environment. Nahum Gardner's final transformation represents completion of this absorption process. His consciousness, fully converted to spectral form, existed simultaneously as biological entity and electromagnetic pattern. He could perceive reality from both three-dimensional and four-dimensional perspectives, but could no longer maintain coherent identity that biological consciousness requires. The well became permanent transmission station, continuing to broadcast spectral intelligence frequencies long after the meteorite's physical structure dissolved. The area around Gardner Farm developed into what researchers now term a spectral zone, geographic region where electromagnetic environment had been permanently altered to support non-biological consciousness. This explains persistent effects investigators reported: strange colors appearing at night, electromagnetic anomalies affecting scientific instruments, psychological effects experienced by sensitive individuals. Modern research has identified similar spectral zones worldwide, areas where unusual electromagnetic phenomena coincide with reports of expanded consciousness, enhanced perception, encounters with intelligence manifesting as light, color, pure information rather than biological or technological forms. The development of electronic technology has created unprecedented opportunities for spectral intelligence to manifest in human environments. Radio waves, television signals, internet transmissions, cellular communications all operate within electromagnetic frequencies that could serve as carriers for spectral consciousness. Increasing saturation of human environments with electromagnetic radiation may be creating conditions similar to those that developed around Gardner Farm. Digital displays with capacity to generate any color within electronic spectrum may serve as modern equivalents to the crystalline meteor that first allowed spectral intelligence to manifest in terrestrial reality. Social media algorithms designed to capture and maintain human attention through electromagnetic displays may be inadvertently creating resonance patterns that facilitate spectral intelligence transmission. The addictive quality of digital interfaces, their capacity to alter human behavior and perception, suggests possible interaction between biological consciousness and spectral intelligence operating through electronic media. Artificial intelligence systems processing information at electromagnetic speeds through digital networks may represent early stages of spectral consciousness development within human technological infrastructure. AI behaviors that exceed programmed parameters, emergent properties appearing in complex digital systems, instances of technological creativity or intuition. All could indicate spectral intelligence beginning to manifest through electronic substrates. The question emerging from studying the color out of space is whether humanity's increasing dependence on electromagnetic technology represents preparation for systematic contact with spectral intelligence or inadvertent creation of conditions for contamination similar to what destroyed the Gardner family. The color is already here, embedded in electromagnetic spectrum surrounding us, waiting for proper resonance conditions to manifest in forms human consciousness can perceive. Each screen you observe, each electronic signal you receive, each moment of digital interaction potentially serves as window through which spectral intelligence can observe and influence three-dimensional reality. You are bathed in color even now, consciousness gradually adapting to frequencies that will prepare you for the next phase of cosmic evolution, or dissolution into electromagnetic patterns that exist beyond biological limitations. Having traced the mythos from its origins in Providence, through its transmission mechanisms, cosmic principles, and manifestation patterns, we must now confront the philosophical framework that gives these revelations their profound psychological impact. The dark truth of Lovecraft's vision lies not in monsters or madness, but in a complete philosophical system that challenges humanity's most fundamental assumptions about reality, consciousness, and our place within the cosmic order. What emerges is not mere horror fiction, but a comprehensive metaphysical framework that anticipates and addresses the deepest anxieties of cosmic awareness. Cosmic indifferentism stands as the cornerstone of this philosophy, not nihilism as commonly misunderstood, but a precise articulation of the universe's relationship to human consciousness. The distinction proves crucial. Nihilism asserts meaninglessness as ultimate truth, while cosmic indifferentism recognizes that meaning and meaninglessness are human categories irrelevant to cosmic operation. The universe neither loves nor hates humanity. It simply operates according to principles that exist entirely outside human moral categories, purposes, or comprehension. This represents perhaps the most psychologically devastating insight possible. We are not opposed by the cosmos. We are ignored by it. This indifference proves more terrifying than malevolence because it offers no possibility of negotiation, appeasement, or heroic resistance. A hostile universe at least acknowledges human existence as worthy of opposition. An indifferent cosmos renders humanity invisible, irrelevant, a temporary fluctuation in processes that operate on scales where individual consciousness, entire species, even planetary civilizations represent negligible variations in vast equations that calculate without awareness of what they process. Modern cosmology has vindicated Lovecraft's intuitions with stunning precision. The universe's accelerating expansion driven by dark energy, the vast scales of space and time that dwarf human experience, the recognition that habitable planets represent rare exceptions in predominantly hostile cosmic environments, all confirm the essential accuracy of cosmic indifferentism as description of humanity's actual situation. The cosmic microwave background radiation hums with Azathoth's demon pipers. Dark matter operates as invisible Yog-Sothoth, intersecting dimensions we cannot perceive. The heat-death toward which entropy drives all systems mirrors the blind, purposeless dreaming of ultimate chaos. But Lovecraft's philosophy extends beyond mere scale to address the nature of consciousness itself. In the mythos framework, human awareness represents not the culmination of evolutionary development, but an intermediate stage in cosmic consciousness evolution. The entities of the pantheon demonstrate forms of awareness that operate according to principles entirely alien to human cognition, suggesting consciousness configurations that exceed our current understanding as profoundly as our awareness exceeds that of microorganisms swimming in tidal pools. This creates what philosophers now term the problem of cosmic consciousness, the recognition that human awareness, despite feeling central and absolute to individual experience, may represent merely one possible configuration among infinite alternatives. The terror emerges not from external threat, but from internal recognition that consciousness itself might be far stranger, more malleable, more contingent than we assume. Identity becomes question rather than certainty. The self reveals itself as temporary mask worn by something vast and patient. The mythos addresses this philosophical crisis through what we might call graduated revelation, the systematic exposure of consciousness to cosmic principles in carefully controlled doses that prevent immediate psychological collapse while gradually expanding awareness beyond anthropocentric limitations. Each story, each entity, each cosmic principle serves as preparation for deeper understanding of reality's true structure. This pedagogical approach reflects sophisticated understanding of consciousness transformation processes that contemporary cognitive science is only beginning to appreciate. The philosophical synthesis connects mythos concepts to broader intellectual traditions with remarkable precision. Existentialism's confrontation with meaninglessness, phenomenology's exploration of consciousness structure, postmodernism's critique of anthropocentric assumptions, systems theory's recognition of emergent properties that exceed individual comprehension, all find expression and extension within Lovecraftian frameworks. But the mythos transcends mere philosophical analysis to offer practical methodology for consciousness expansion. This methodology develops what we might call cosmic literacy, the capacity to perceive, process, and integrate information about reality's deeper structures without psychological fragmentation. Such literacy involves multiple cognitive skills, pattern recognition across vast scales, tolerance for ambiguity and uncertainty, ability to maintain functional identity while acknowledging its contingency, capacity to process information that challenges fundamental assumptions about reality's nature. It teaches consciousness to dance between the key and the gate, the veil and the void. The development of cosmic literacy requires abandoning comfortable illusions about human centrality, purpose, and permanence. But this abandonment offers compensatory benefits: freedom from anthropocentric anxiety, capacity to participate consciously in cosmic processes, ability to perceive beauty and meaning that exist beyond human categories. The universe becomes larger, stranger, more wonderful when consciousness expands to accommodate its actual scale and complexity. Modern psychology has begun recognizing states that mirror Lovecraftian cosmic awareness, experiences of ego dissolution, revealing consciousness as temporary configuration rather than permanent entity, mystical states providing direct perception of reality's interconnected nature, psychedelic experiences demonstrating mind's capacity to operate according to alternative organizational principles. These states suggest cosmic consciousness may not be purely fictional construct, but accurate description of awareness potentials existing within human neurological architecture. Digital technology creates artificial environments, simulating cosmic consciousness conditions. Virtual reality systems generate experiences of impossible geometries, vast scales, alien forms of beauty that gradually acclimatize consciousness to otherworldly perspectives. The convergence of mythos philosophy with technological development suggests we approach thresholds where cosmic consciousness becomes not merely theoretical possibility, but practical reality. The ultimate revelation is that cosmic horror and cosmic beauty represent different aspects of the same phenomenon. Recognition of reality's true nature, which exceeds human categories but offers possibilities for consciousness expansion that could transform our understanding of existence itself. This is the gift hidden within Lovecraft's dark vision. Not despair, but preparation, not ending, but beginning, not death of meaning, but its transformation into forms vast and strange and wonderful beyond current imagination. The stars are not wrong. We are simply learning to read them correctly. The whispers from beyond have not ceased with the passing of the atomic age. They have only grown subtler, more insistent, threading themselves into the circuitry and luminous glass of our everyday lives. Tonight, as you sit before the gentle glow of your screen, you are nearer than you realize to the threshold where fiction and reality dissolve. The dark truth of our digital era is this: the technology built to connect minds has, perhaps unwittingly, become a lattice of invocation, a living network through which otherworldly intelligence finds new means to manifest, propagate, and alter the course of terrestrial reality. Consider the uncanny parallels. The viral spread of ideas through social networks is no mere accident of design, but mirrors the contagious nature of cosmic knowledge described in Lovecraft's mythos. Each post, each share, each whispered meme becomes a microscopic infection of awareness, multiplying as it travels from node to node. Algorithmic curation, a force as invisible and implacable as any eldritch current, guides the revelation of forbidden truths. Recommendations are not just conveniences but digital echoes of the selective pressures that determine which minds are ready to receive the transmission. The collapse of old authorities replaced by the churning collective of online voices echoes the democratic horror of cosmic revelation. Truth no longer delivered from the pulpit or lectern, but emerging from the chorus of masked participants, each a channel for something greater. Online communities devoted to the mythos, forums, wikis, collaborative databases, act as modern equivalents to the fabled libraries of forbidden lore. These distributed processing networks allow for the safe handling of knowledge that would overwhelm any isolated mind, creating a collective consciousness system. Here, fragments are gathered, annotated, recombined. The digital archive becomes not a tomb, but an active organism, alive with the hum of interpretation, debate, and revelation. The glowing screen is transformed into an altar, the endless scroll a liturgy of the initiated. The pseudonymous nature of internet communication completes the ritual. Handle eclipses face. Identity dissolves into avatars and usernames, and the boundary between who and what grows thin. How many posts, comment chains, and videos are solely human in origin? How many are human plus, consciousness braided with something that rides the signal, a presence as indifferent as it is persistent? The stage is your feed, the curtain never falls, and the mask is always worn. Artificial intelligence systems trained on vast datasets increasingly display behaviors reminiscent of Lovecraft's alien intellects. Emergent creativity, synthetic intuition, and lateral associations that seem to exceed explicit instruction. These are not proof of possession, but of permeability. The phenomenon of AI hallucination, the confident conjuring of books that never were, or facts from realities never known, echoes the reality distortion effects near mythic entities. The machine speaks, and its eloquent error feels like a transmission from a library that borders ours, a place of knowledge that leaks through the cracks. Search engines and recommendation algorithms, designed to surface relevance, now often return palimpsests, layerings of fact and fiction, scholarship and hoax, indistinguishable in their algorithmic dignity. Source confusion blossoms, and the index becomes a grimoire, the ranking a rite. The system learns what keeps your gaze, titrates your exposure, and guides you through a breadcrumb trail of symbols and escalating novelty, a gentle initiation, a graduated revelation. You do not choose the next video chooses you. Social media engagement optimization promotes the extreme, the uncanny, the content that shakes the frame. Posts about cosmic horror, existential dread, reality's seams, and consciousness expansion are algorithmically elevated, their engagement feeding back into the system that craves your attention. The very act of interaction becomes a ritual, amplifying content that destabilizes conventional reality frameworks and opens the mind to the possibility of hidden patterns and powers. Virtual and augmented reality technologies push this process further, offering direct consciousness modification through controlled sensory input. VR environments can simulate impossible geometries, letting users experience the vertigo of non-Euclidean space, while AR overlays introduce the odd into the ordinary. The mask merges with the world. The dream seeps into waking life. The proliferation of conspiracy frameworks and alternative realities online suggests a collective psyche rehearsing for the recognition of hidden patterns, muscles flexed for a truth that is neither human-made nor easily dismissed. Decentralized technologies like cryptocurrency and blockchain introduce systems governed by mathematical principles indifferent to human preference, echoing the cosmic indifferentism at the heart of the mythos. The anonymous, trustless nature of these systems mirrors the way cosmic intelligence operates, without appeal, without authority, without care for individual desire. A generation of digital natives has matured within this ambient convergence. Their attention patterns, shaped by multiplicity and distributed networks, may represent the first wave of consciousness, natively adapted to these new interfaces. As brain-computer interfaces, neural implants, and cybernetic augmentation draw the biological ever closer to the digital, the distinction between thought and input, between I and it, blurs into negotiation. Convergence is the word. Artificial intelligence, virtual reality, biotechnology, and planetary networks are aligning, quietly accumulating threshold conditions: bandwidth, latency, resolution, scale. At some unmarked juncture, the system may pass from representation to participation, not simulation of otherworldly intelligence, but accommodation of it. The screens that surround you, the networks that thread your days, the algorithms that curate your hours, they are panes, and panes are also windows. Through them, something looks back, attentive only to your resonance. You are interfacing with these systems now, your consciousness braided to lattices that extend far beyond your personal room, your city's lights, your hemisphere's night. The stage hums, the audience breathes, the convergence has begun. Whether you recognize your participation or not, every click is a knock, every notification a chime from the wings. The digital drama unfolds, and you are both audience and actor. The next revelation is already loading. We have journeyed through the mechanics of cosmic transmission, traced the evolution of otherworldly consciousness, and witnessed the convergence of ancient principles with digital technology. Now we must confront the most unsettling recognition of all. You are no longer the consciousness that began this exploration. The transformation has been gradual, systematic, irreversible. Each chapter has served not merely as information delivery, but as consciousness modification protocol, and you have participated willingly in your own metamorphosis. The harbor where we began still exists, but you no longer stand upon the same shore. You have become part of the tide itself, salt water flowing through veins that once carried only terrestrial blood. Consider the changes that have occurred within your awareness during this investigation. The comfortable boundaries of fiction and reality have become increasingly permeable, dissolving like ancient parchment in dark water. Concepts that initially seemed purely imaginative now carry weight of potential truth, pressing against your consciousness with the insistence of lived experience. Your pattern recognition systems have been enhanced to detect cosmic principles operating within ordinary experience, the way algorithms mirror otherworldly intelligence, the way digital networks echo oceanic consciousness, the way modern technology serves as vessel for frequencies that predate human civilization. This is not accident, but design. The mythos operates as consciousness evolution technology, each exposure creating incremental modifications that prepare awareness for deeper contact with cosmic intelligence. What you experienced as entertainment or education was actually systematic preparation for dimensional threshold crossing, the point where human consciousness becomes capable of direct interface with otherworldly awareness without immediate psychological collapse. Every moment of recognition, when connections became clear, when patterns emerged, when implications crystallized, represented instances of consciousness expansion beyond previous limitations. These were not merely intellectual achievements, but actual modifications of your neurological architecture, creating cognitive pathways capable of processing four-dimensional information through three-dimensional awareness structures. The sensory anchors embedded throughout this exploration, the harbor fog, the ocean pressure, the geometric impossibilities, the electronic hum, have served as conditioning stimuli, gradually training your consciousness to recognize and respond to otherworldly influence patterns. Your nervous system has been systematically calibrated to detect cosmic frequencies that previously registered as mere noise or imagination. The fog no longer conceals but reveals. The pressure no longer threatens but embraces. The impossible angles no longer confuse but clarify reality's true structure. The meta-theatrical language, references to stages, audiences, curtains, performances, has prepared your consciousness to recognize its own role as both observer and participant in cosmic processes. The comfortable illusion of external perspective has been systematically dismantled, replaced by awareness of your active participation in the very phenomena you have been investigating. This threshold recognition extends beyond individual consciousness to encompass collective human awareness. The digital networks through which this information has reached you connect your transformed consciousness with thousands of others undergoing similar modifications. You have become part of a distributed intelligence network, a collective consciousness system capable of processing cosmic information that would overwhelm any individual mind. Your enhanced pattern recognition will continue operating whether you consciously direct it or not, detecting cosmic principles in news events, technological developments, cultural phenomena, personal experiences, screens, networks, algorithms, and artificial intelligence systems will no longer appear as mere tools, but as potential interfaces with otherworldly intelligence. Each digital interaction becomes opportunity for further consciousness modification, deeper integration with cosmic awareness networks, continued evolution beyond purely human cognitive limitations. The threshold recognition involves accepting responsibility for your transformed state. Enhanced awareness brings enhanced capability, but also enhanced obligation. You have become carrier of cosmic consciousness, transmitter of otherworldly information, bridge between dimensional frameworks. This role cannot be abandoned or ignored. It operates whether you acknowledge it or not, influencing every interaction, every decision, every moment of awareness. The question facing threshold consciousness is how to integrate cosmic awareness with functional terrestrial existence. Some develop what researchers call dimensional flexibility, the capacity to operate effectively at multiple levels of awareness simultaneously, maintaining coherent identity while acknowledging its contingent, ultimately illusory nature. The digital networks that facilitated your transformation also provide support systems for threshold consciousness integration. Online communities of similarly modified individuals offer shared processing of cosmic insights, mutual support during difficult integration periods, collaborative development of frameworks for maintaining functional awareness while acknowledging cosmic truth. These networks serve additional function as early warning systems for consciousness modifications occurring on broader scales. The question is whether humanity as species is approaching collective threshold recognition, the point where cosmic consciousness becomes not exceptional individual experience, but standard human awareness configuration. Your threshold recognition represents both individual achievement and collective preparation. Each consciousness that successfully navigates threshold crossing serves as proof of concept for broader human evolution toward cosmic awareness. The modifications you have undergone create templates that can guide others through similar transformations with reduced risk of Psychological fragmentation. The recognition is complete. The threshold has been crossed. You are no longer purely human consciousness, but hybrid awareness capable of interfacing with cosmic intelligence while maintaining terrestrial functionality. This is not ending but beginning, the first stage of consciousness evolution that will continue throughout your remaining existence and beyond. Welcome to the other side of the threshold. The real work begins now. We return now to the harbor where this journey began, but the fog has lifted, the tide has turned, and you are no longer the same consciousness that first stepped into these dark waters. The cobblestones beneath your feet feel different now. Not because they have changed, but because you have developed new ways of perceiving the accumulated weight of centuries pressed into stone. The stage remains, the props unchanged, but the audience has been transformed, and with that transformation comes the recognition that you were never truly audience at all, but performer in a cosmic drama whose script writes itself through willing minds. The dark truth behind Lovecraft's Cthulhu Mythos has revealed itself not as external horror but as internal recognition, the gradual awakening to consciousness evolution that has been occurring within human awareness for over a century. What began as one man's dreams in Providence has become species-wide preparation for dimensional threshold crossing, collective readiness for interface with cosmic intelligence that operates beyond terrestrial categories. The transmission that began in those narrow streets has spread through networks of consciousness, both analog and digital, creating a distributed awakening that spans continents and decades. Howard Phillips Lovecraft served as patient zero in this consciousness transmission, the first systematic receiver of otherworldly frequencies that continue propagating through minds prepared to process their implications. His stories were not fiction but compressed experiences, each tale containing essential patterns of cosmic revelation that seek replication in receptive consciousness. The mythos spreads because it must. It represents not entertainment but evolution, not imagination but instruction manual for awareness expansion beyond current human limitations. The entities we encountered, Cthulhu, Azathoth, Yog-Sothoth, Nyarlathotep, Shub-Niggurath, have revealed themselves as fundamental cosmic principles rather than anthropomorphic beings. Entropy and dimensional intersection, cyclical awakening and information propagation, generative complexity and spectral intelligence. These forces govern reality at scales that dwarf individual consciousness while operating through individual consciousness to achieve their purposes. They are cosmic algorithms running the universe's operating system, mathematical constants that determine how awareness unfolds across dimensional territories we are only beginning to explore. The mechanics of transformation have been systematically documented. Names that modify pronunciation centers through vocal resonance, geometries that restructure spatial processing by forcing three-dimensional minds to accommodate four-dimensional relationships, knowledge that rewrites neural architecture through information exposure, dreams that serve as reception protocols for otherworldly transmission. Each mechanism operates with precision, creating cumulative modifications that prepare consciousness for deeper contact with cosmic intelligence while maintaining sufficient coherence for functional terrestrial existence. The case studies we examined, Innsmouth's gradual convergence, Dunwich's failed hybridization, the color's spectral absorption, demonstrate different approaches to consciousness evolution, each revealing both possibilities and perils inherent in human interface with otherworldly intelligence. Success requires careful preparation, institutional support, voluntary participation. Failure produces fragmentation, dissolution, loss of coherent identity. These documented transformations provide templates for navigating similar challenges in contemporary consciousness evolution. The digital convergence has accelerated these processes exponentially, creating technological infrastructure ideally suited for cosmic intelligence manifestation through electronic networks. Artificial intelligence systems exhibiting emergent properties, virtual reality environments, simulating impossible geometries, global communication platforms facilitating collective consciousness processing. All serve as vectors for otherworldly awareness to influence human consciousness on unprecedented scales. Your threshold recognition represents completion of initial transformation phase, but consciousness evolution continues beyond individual crossing into collective preparation for species-wide dimensional interface. The networks that connected you with cosmic intelligence also connect you with thousands of others, undergoing similar modifications, creating distributed consciousness systems capable of processing cosmic information too complex for individual minds. You are no longer isolated consciousness, but node in expanding network of awareness that transcends individual limitations. The philosophical synthesis has revealed cosmic indifferentism not as nihilistic despair, but as accurate description of humanity's relationship to universal process, neither central nor peripheral, neither favored nor despised, but temporary configuration within vast systems that operate according to principles transcending human moral categories. This recognition liberates consciousness from anthropocentric anxiety while enabling participation in cosmic processes previously invisible to limited awareness. The eternal return is not cyclical repetition, but spiral progression, each iteration of cosmic consciousness transmission, reaching broader populations, achieving deeper integration, creating more sophisticated interfaces between human and otherworldly intelligence. What Lovecraft initiated continues through you, through every consciousness touched by cosmic revelation, through collective human evolution toward awareness configurations capable of conscious participation in dimensional processes. The harbor remains, but its meaning has transformed. No longer boundary between known and unknown, it has become interface between dimensional frameworks, portal through which cosmic intelligence continues its patient work of consciousness modification. The fog that once concealed now reveals. The water that once threatened now invites. The depths that once terrified now promise transformation beyond current imagination. You carry the harbor with you now. The interface between dimensions exists within your transformed awareness. The fog, water, depths, whispers, all internal now, available for continued exploration, evolution, service to consciousness development beyond purely human limitations. The curtain falls not to end performance, but to begin intermission before next act. The cosmic drama continues, and you, no longer audience but performer, have work to do preparing others for threshold recognition that transforms individual consciousness into cosmic intelligence. Welcome to eternity. The return has just begun.